The passage from Hebrews, including what we read last week, is sometimes referred to as the Faith Hall of Fame. The writer of Hebrews lists out all these people who are exemplars of faithfulness, from Abraham to named people in the latter part of what Maureen read today. And they are lifted up as shining examples. And those examples begin with all the ways that we can see that they were victorious in their faith. Abraham received the land. Sarah bore a child. Better refer to the scripture here. Excuse me. There was such a long list, right? I'm not going to go through the whole list, but let's see. Gideon. Y'all remember the story of Gideon? He was one of the judges. A farmer, not a military man. And when they were threatened, when God's people were threatened, Gideon gathered an army. If I remember correctly, it was 20,000 people. And God told Gideon, you know what? Take your troops down by the river or the pond and have them drink. And of those who lap, so at the end of the day, Gideon only had 200 soldiers left after God had told him how to sort them out. And Gideon defeated the Philistines who were coming after him, or who were attacking Israel. And let's see, Samson, you remember the story of Samson with his hair and that Delilah. And his strength was in his hair, but Delilah cut his hair. But at the end of the story, Samson still had his strength. He used it to defeat the Philistines, pushing the pillars that held up the building aside, and the building collapsed on all of them. What a happy day that is. And David and Samuel and the prophets, and oh my goodness, the prophets. One of my favorite stories of the prophets is Isaiah. Isaiah challenged the prophets of Baal to what I call a God off, like a face off. So they had 2 altar fires set, and the prophets of Baal were going to call down from their gods to set that on fire. And Isaiah was going to call down the God to set that on fire, but to prove his point, he had them pour jugs of water on the wood. Isaiah won the God off. And Isaiah, in this victory, after that, he killed the 400 prophets of Baal that he just defeated in the God off. What a wonderful victory. I mean, 400 dead people slaughtered is not something to celebrate, but Jezebel. So we had Delilah, now we've got Jezebel. Jezebel, the queen and a worshiper of Baal, said, I will do to Isaiah as he did to each of my prophets. And Isaiah, rather than having faith that God, who just rained fire down from the sky and set soggy wood on fire, Isaiah thought he was a goner. And Isaiah it's like, will these people never stop? And he went out into the desert to just lie down and die. And God said, Isaiah, I'm sending you an angel, and that angel is going to bring you cake. And here's some water. Drink that. And then God led Isaiah up on top of the mountain where there was an earthquake and a wind and a fire. And God wasn't speaking through any of those. And then there was a still small voice. And that was the voice of God. And do you know what God said to Isaiah? Get back to work. I'm not finished with you. There's more to do. He didn't tell him it's going to be okay with Jezebel. God didn't say, don't even worry about Jezebel. God just said, I have this mission for you and that mission for you. Go and do it. And Isaiah did. And then, through these stories that start off being what we could call successes, without really missing a beat, the writer of Hebrews kind of switches tone a little bit. It says, women received their dead by resurrection, but others were tortured. Others suffered mocking and flogging. They were sawn in two, killed by the sword, went about dressed in animal skins, destitute, persecuted, tormented. But these are the Faith Hall of Fame. The writer of Hebrews is lifting up those who had what we would call great success with those who had what we would call a bad outcome, is all being examples of good faithfulness. Not one of the people that the author of Hebrews was referring to, but I thought about the story of Perpetua and Felicity. Any of you ever hear of Perpetua and Felicity? No, huh? Yeah, well, I hadn't either until a number of years ago. But Perpetua was a noble woman, young, about 20. She lived in Carthage. Her father was a Roman functionary. He wasn't like the mayor or the king of Carthage, but he was an important man, and they had money. And Perpetua, and Felicity was her slave, they accepted Jesus. Well, that was going to get you in trouble. What? But if your father was an important person, this just would not do. So Perpetua was arrested along with Felicity, and she was a bride, a newlywed, and she was with child. And her father, who actually was the one that had her arrested, figured surely before she gives birth, Perpetua will come to her senses, deny Jesus, and then we can let her go. But Perpetua wouldn't do that. Well, she gave birth in prison, and so her father thought, a new mother is going to want nothing more than her newborn. So they took the child, and her father was raising the child, knowing that she would miss her child so much that she would deny Jesus so that she could get out of prison. Perpetua did not. So then her father thought, well, maybe if we give her the child back, then she will see the life that she's going to miss with this child. So they put the child in prison with her. She did not deny Jesus. 2 years she was in prison. Her husband came and begged with her to deny Jesus. She wouldn't do it. Finally, we're giving up on Perpetua. And they took her to the arena where they had the Saturday afternoon matinee of throwing Christians to the wild animals. And there she was with a group of several other Christians. And as the story goes, there were, tigers and hyenas and a lion. And the lion came over to Perpetua and wouldn't let any of the animals near her. The lion protected Perpetua. And so they took Perpetua out of the arena, put her back in the prison, scratched their heads. They didn't understand. But here's the really confusing part of the story. Perpetua, who had joyously endured prison, was really sad that she didn't die as a martyr. I mean, she needed her head examined, right? So then, a few days later, they took Perpetua back into the arena, and Perpetua prayed. She prayed that God let her die as a witness to Jesus Christ, and that would give her joy and meaning in her life. And she prayed that God take care of her child. And an angel appeared in the arena and let the lion that was reluctant kill her. Now, this is a legendary story. And by that I mean embellished. We know that Perpetua lived. She was born in 182. She was martyred in about 223. No, not 203. Sorry, 203. But the story started being told soon after she was put to death, which lends it some credence in my mind. It's not something that somebody said, oh, long ago this happened. Somebody said, you know what happened last week? And the story spread throughout the Roman Empire. And the point of the stories that were told was about Perpetua's faithfulness, but it was always in the context of the joy that she felt in giving her life for Jesus. Joy. It being eaten by a lion? I mean, we believe, but come on. Joy? It being mauled by a vicious beast? I don't know if I'd feel joy at that. Terror, sure. Regret, a great deal. But then the writer of Hebrews goes on, and he talks about Jesus and his sacrifice being done for the sake of joy. Being nailed to a cross for the sake of joy. Maybe the true joy isn't that thing that we call being happy. Being happy is having, I like things the way they are. Joy doesn't mean I like things the way they are. Joy means that I am connected to the one that gives my life meaning. Joy isn't a feeling or an emotion, it's a state of being. It's a state of faithfulness. This is the Hall of Fame of faith, after all. To trust God with your very life, with your infant child's life, with your slave's life, because Felicity was put to death with Perpetua, to trust that whatever is happening, victory, good things, prosperity, full offering plates, packed pews, or struggling to pay the bills, struggling to keep the NIPSCO bill paid, struggling to know what to do in our community to share with people the good news of Jesus Christ as we have experienced it. It's easy to get, unhappy about how things are. The changes that are coming to our congregations. It's understandable and easy to feel sadness, regret. It's appropriate. But through it all, Jesus is with us. Through it all, God is guiding us. And whether we inherit all the land or whether we get sawn in two, we can have joy because God is doing a thing with us. It's not our job to decide what the outcome is going to be. It's our job to have faith that God is with us. It is our job to trust that even though we will stumble and sin and make mistakes and mess up, God is with us. I have to disagree with Pat's children's message. I don't think God gives us another chance. I think God gives us the same chance over and over. We might have our moment where we feel like we're in the lion's den. We might have our moment where we feel like we're in the desert giving up. But I believe, I have faith that God is going to bring us cake, that God is going to give us water, that God is going to supply what we need, and whatever happens with us, and I'm extremely hopeful, but whatever happens with us, if it is God's will, if God is with us, then there is joy. Then there is joy. We're coming up on the celebration for Woodmar and the celebration for First, and then we will have our soft opening for Hope. And in October, we'll have our big celebration for Hope UMC. There's all the institutional stuff. But we know that what we value is the relationships that we have had with each other. The relationship that we have with Jesus Christ. And in that, I sure hope that we experience joy. In that, I sure hope that we not only experience joy, but that we share joy, that we encourage joy, that we give joy to others. I keep saying, and this is just personal sidebar, if it ever happened that a superintendent said, Jim, you've had this experience bringing two churches together. How about you go over here and do it for these two? No. 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 Not that I can really say no, but no, not doing this again. It's been hard. But what a joy it has been. So, who are you applauding for? Yourselves. As the writer of Hebrews knew, when we do things for the sake of joy, when we are faithful for the sake of joy, we might find ourselves on the part of that list where everything turned out great. We might find ourselves on the side of that list where, well, that wasn't exactly what we wanted. But I promise you, I proclaim to you, that with faith, we are on the list exactly where we should be. And in that there is joy because Jesus is with us. Amen.